dry season is over, there is a cloud beginning to swell. To the skies, heavy with blessing, lift your eyes, offer your heart. Jesus Christ, open the heavens, now we receive the Spirit of God. We receive your rain. We receive your rain. Every seed buried in sorrow, you will call forth in His time. You are Lord, Lord of the harvest, calling our hope now to arise. We receive your rain. We receive your rain. We receive your rain. We receive your rain. Like a flood, we receive your love when you come. Like a flood, we receive your love when you come. Like a flood, we receive your love when you come. Like a flood, we receive your And with great anticipation, we await the promise to come. Everything that you have spoken will come to pass. Let it be done. Oh, it shall be done. Every dream, every word, every promise, we receive your rain. We receive my sorrow and dead in my sin, lost without hope, no place to begin. Your love made a way to let mercy come in. When death was arrested and my life began, ash was redeemed, only beauty remains, and my orphan heart was given a name. My mourning grew quiet, my feet rose to dance. When death was arrested, my life began. Oh, your grace, so free, washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Released from my chains, I'm a prisoner no more. My shame was a ransom he faithfully bore. He canceled my debt and he called me his friend. When death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace, so free, washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. Yes, it does. And it's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Our Savior displayed on a criminal's cross. Darkness rejoiced as though heaven had lost.
Good afternoon. We're going to get rocking and rolling. I am glad you were able to join me today. I'm still a little swollen, so I'm trying not to talk too much again. But I did want to get on here and do this. This is something that's very, very important to my heart, so I wanted to make sure that we did do this. We're going to be doing a rendition of the Garden of Gethsemane. I'm actually going to grab one of the photos from my trip real quick. To share with you guys, because I think this is important that you kind of understand where the image is coming from for me, so you can understand exactly what my inspiration is. Helps if I can spell. Nope. There we go. Um, so yeah, this is important so that you guys understand where my inspiration for today's image is coming from. In 2018, I had the pleasure of going to Israel. I've mentioned this on previous streams, and today we're doing the Garden of Gethsemane, which is very important. Figure this is Maundy Thursday. That's Maundy Thursday. So this would be when he would have left the Eastern Gate, which is now sealed, and he would have gone up to the Garden of Gethsemane, out of the upper chamber, the upper room. So we actually went there. We go to the Garden of Gethsemane, and there was some amazing stuff there, but the garden itself is what's really near and dear to my heart right now. So I'm trying to find the image. So this is the image that is. Oh, hold on, let me resize it because now it's apparently way too big. Extremely way too big. Hold on, let me fix this. Lots of resizing going on here. I apologize. So there it is. This is the Garden of Gethsemane. This is my inspiration image. So we're going to paint something that's been inspired by this. I do want to put the Eastern Gate in the background because that is important to me as well. So we're going to take this lovely little guy here, and I'm going to plop him right up here. Just so we've got that as our... So you guys can kind of see what my inspiration is for today. I probably won't leave it up the entire time, but it's up for right now. So that was taken back in 2018 at the Garden of Gethsemane, and I'm not going to do the gate or anything around it. I'm going to go back to, I want to imagine that the gate's not there. There probably wouldn't have been any paved stones either. It would have all been dirt roads and stones, or dirt pathways and stuff like that. There were only cobble streets in the main way of Jerusalem. That would have been the only cobbling or stone ways that would have been out there. So we're going to go backwards. I'm going to do a technique. We're going to go into some Bob Ross. I learned some Bob Ross technique, and we're going to actually do some yellow back here, give the hint of a skyline. And you're going to see me looking off to my second monitor a lot because I've got it pulled up over here so I can kind of get an idea of what I want. And I've got a couple images pulled up over here of the background and the Eastern Gate and all kinds of stuff. So I'm kind of compiling them all together over here, so I can pull what I want to create what I'm looking for. So you're going to see me looking off to my left monitor a good bit, and I apologize in advance for that. But that's because that's where I've got my images over set up. So my little compilation or collage of images is set up on my left monitor. So you see me glancing over there a couple times throughout, and that would be why. I'm actually pulling up one more image before I forget. There it is. And this is just to help me keep the desired image in the forefront, so I know what I'm creating. I know what I'm looking for. The main part is going to be what you see above me here, that image of the trees and stuff. That's the main portion of it. The background's going to be a little bit different. Like I said, I want to put Israel in the background. I don't want to put a blue sky, and I want to give it that air and like haziness that there's sun rising. So there's going to be like a fog, like it's the sun rising on after, on the morning of that Thursday or something. So it's the garden itself coming alive the Thursday before the morning of the arrival that Jesus would have had to the Garden of Gethsemane. So real quick, let me pull up this other image real quick because I opened the folder but I didn't pull it out. I just want to make sure I have it open so I can use it as a reference point to Israel and the Eastern Gate. I also have another olive tree image that I'm using to help me fully understand how the olive trees branch out, because they don't just come straight up and then boom, there's a tree. They like branch all over the place, so I want to make sure that I'm pulling that out as well. and making sure that I get the shadowing correct-ish. We're going to see how this turns out. There it is. So I have 4 different photos pulled up on my left screen. One of them is the image that's in my top left of your screen. Another image is a close-up of the tree that's there, so that's going to help me to make sure I'm sizing it correctly and proportionately. And then another image is the eastern gate, and that's to help me size the outline of Israel in the background. There we go. I had a close-up image of the eastern gate that I wanted to pull up because I think that's important for me to make sure that I have so the idea is that I make sure that I get the edging of the background of the gate of Israel correctly. So we're going to start off, we're going to build our palette. I kept yesterday's palette still moist, so I still have yesterday's palette with the blues and browns and greens, or teals. And I'm not going to use a whole lot of it. I'm probably just going to use this over here, a little bit of the teal, and the browns. But I didn't want to waste paint, and I do have a ton of white over here that I can use today as well. So I didn't want to waste any of that. We are going to use that today. But we're going to build a fresh palette as well. I have a cat that's found sleeping in my art box to be pleasurable. So my styrofoam is collecting lots of loose cat hair now. So we've had to have a conversation about where she is and is not allowed to sleep, and she has understood the art box is now off limits. Mostly because it's now filled with art supplies and closed. So I've got a blank palette here. We're going to fill this bad boy. I've got some yellows over here to the side we're going to put on here. I've also got some greens that we're going to load up on here because I don't have greens on the other palette. And we're going to be using an 11 by 14 canvas panel today. Sorry, the swelling in my mouth makes some words hard to say. An 11 by 14 canvas panel. So we've been doing 8 by 10, so you can see the difference. I have yesterday's painting, so you can see the size difference. So this is an 8 by 10, this is an 11 by 14, and I did tape this one off because I do plan to frame it when we're done. So I am excited about that as well. So we're going to start with our yellows. I'm going to go dark to light because that's how I like to roll. So we've got deep yellow. We are going to put retarding mediums on these. So deep yellow, cadmium yellow, medium hue. Medium yellow. And pale yellow. Then we're going to do the same thing with our greens. I'm only going to put 3 different types of greens on here. 2 of them are brand new. They're the ones that came in my Dick Blick box yesterday. So my sap green and my phthalo green we're going to be putting on there. And then we're also going to be using oxide chromium green. So we're going to be using these 3 greens today primarily because I don't want I don't want, how do I want to phrase this? I don't want like grass green. I want more of an olive green. So this is going to give me the colorations and the variations that I'm looking for. So we're going to start with our sap green. That'll be the first one to go down. And I am putting a good bit because I will probably use all of this stuff, if not more than that, because I am using a larger canvas today. So we did the sap green. Now I'm going to come in with the oxide chromium green. And then we're going to top it off with the phthalo green towards the bottom. There we go. And then I am going to come in with my Payne's gray and my medium gray. Like I said, I have titanium white on my other palette that I'm going to finish up, and I still have a little bit in the container, or the tube that I had before. We're going to probably finish that off today as well, because we're doing a lot of lights down first, and then we'll go into some medium grays and our Payne's gray. But I'm going to get those out on the palette as well, because we will be using those towards for the tree trunks and stuff. So just a little bit of medium gray. And I'm going to put a little bit of Payne's gray on here. And you notice I intentionally didn't put my Payne's gray next to my pale yellow because I didn't want them to accidentally mix together. And then we're going to put our retarding medium on, which I have stashed over there. So again, our retarder medium prevents our paints from drying too quickly, so that way when we do get around to using them, they are still moist. And I like to coat them well, and then we'll mix it all in. Another plus side to using our retarder medium allows us to preserve our palettes. All right, sorry about that. I had to address something really quick. So again, I'm just mixing in my retarding medium really quick to preserve our colors so we can get started here and get rocking and rolling. This almost reminds me of mustard, I'll be honest. I feel like mustard's a mix of these two colors. And it's always funny when I look at things like when I'm cooking and stuff, I always sit there and go, oh, that reminds me of this color, or that reminds me of that color. Ketchup reminds me of not just red, but like cadmium red. Yeah, this kind of reminds me of yellow mustard now. I think this one actually looks more like yellow mustard than that one does, now that I'm staring at them. Now the hard part with this is I have to make sure that I pull all that retarding medium in that's been settling around it, because it will cause it to settle. This is a lot of people will use the heavier body paints with a wet brush, and that'll help the paints stay wet longer because they're heavier. I don't like heavier bodied paints. I don't like the way that they sit on the canvases. It's not my style, so I don't usually do that. Grab a paper towel here. We're going to clean this off. We're going to go jump into our greens. And again, I'm mixing light to dark because I don't mind, like, a little bit of the light going into the darker ones isn't a big deal, but darkers going into the lighter colors can actually cause the color to shift tremendously, and I don't want that. I want to keep the colors as true as possible to what they currently are. And that's also another reason why we're scraping off. The edge of the plate is also going to help to pick up only a little bit of paint or clean off the paintbrush, so we're not picking up too much paint at once, or to help spread the paint thoroughly throughout the paintbrush, which is always important as well. There we go, and we'll pick this guy up. And you're always welcome when you pop in. You're always welcome to say hi or give a shout out or ask questions. I always welcome it, so don't feel like you have to sit there and just watch me paint. You're welcome to ask questions or anything like that. If you're watching this later, after the stream is ended, you're always welcome to message me on Instagram or Twitter, any questions that you have come up from that stream, and I will happily answer them then as well. And there's no such thing as a bad or wrong question. They're all good. There we go. I actually really like this phthalo green. It almost has a turquoise air to it. Now we're going to mix our grays, and then we're going to get into painting our, putting down our white. Done a couple of other paintings similar to this, where we did a very light yellow background, and something else in front of it. So I'm really excited to kind of do this. I haven't done one in a while. It's probably been about a year since I've done something like this. So I'm very excited to get back into something that I enjoy doing, a style I enjoyed doing when I did do it last. So, and again, this is me. I'm painting something that's very dear to my heart as well. So that always makes it more enticing to come back and get to it. I spent a lot of time trying to determine what to paint. Spend a lot of time thinking about it, what should be painted today. And really this is what's really been on my heart. So I figured this is probably a good time to put this out there and paint this. So I'm excited to see how this turns out. I'm just making sure this is well mixed. We're going to clean the palette knife off real quick so it's easier to clean off when it's wet than when it's waiting till it's dried. And we'll put her away. I'm just taking a basic wash brush, nothing fancy. I think it's a 1-inch wash brush. And we're going to come in with our white first and layer it along the back. And then I'm going to come behind it with some of my yellows. And we're going to start streaking them through the skyline. So this is our palette from yesterday that's got some leftover paints on it. I'm just going to pick up some of this white here. So I've preserved this, again, by adding water on top of the paints to keep the paints moist and prevent them from drying out. And I'm just coming in with the white. And we're hitting that skyline. And there's a little bit of blue in this white, and I'm not going to let it affect how I use it. I'm just going to set the paints off to the side for a moment. We're going to get this white spread across here. Like I said, I did tape off the edges only because I do plan on framing this afterwards, because I am really excited about this one. And no, I don't know exactly how it's going to turn out, because I didn't do a pre-sketch or anything like that. So we're just going to kind of play with it and see how it works. I want to make sure I give plenty of room for that skyline to come down and leave space for me to be able to do the skyline of Israel in the background. So we're just going to make sure that I pull that white down nice nice and strongly through. And I'm going to come in first off with my pale yellow, and I'm just going to put a little bit right on the corner of my brush. So let me pull my paints over here. We'll move the brushes out of the way. We'll just rearrange a little bit as we go. Here we go. So I'm just going to pull a little bit of this pale yellow right onto the edge of the brush. I'm going to start up at the top and I'm going to work my way down. There we go. And I don't want to apply too much pressure. I really actually kind of want the streaking right now as it's blending in. And then I'll move my way up to my bolder yellows as I go. And I'm going to blend this out really well. We're going to just a hair of the deep yellow, that nice dark deep yellow. And I want to just kind of streak it through the skyline. There we go. And do one more. The idea is that these streaks are giving the appearance of a rising sun off in the background. Oh, I forgot to put my diffuser on my lamp. I am so sorry. There we go. So the idea is that the yellow is giving the appearance of the sky, right? The sun rising off in the distance, and I just want to take my brush and very lightly kind of buff it out. So very light pressure. Just kind of buff this out so it's not too heavy. And I'm going to come back in with that pale lemon yellow. Or is it just pale yellow? Pale yellow. And just highlight through. Again, we're just giving that appearance of streaking. And I could use white for this if I really wanted to. And I'll show you that in a hot second as well, because I'm going to streak some white through it. So I'm going to dry I'm not going to wet my brush, I'm just going to dry it off in my paper towel here and just kind of pull some of that excess paint out. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of white on my brush, just right on the edge there, and I'm going to tap it through, because then I'll follow through with a light-handed brush and just streak it. And I want more streaks up towards the top and fewer down towards the bottom. And it's just going to allow, again, that appearance of the sun rising in the background. I feel like I just wiped paint on my face. I double checked to make sure there wasn't any paint on my hand. Sorry, I have to move this so I don't get this glare from the light. There we go. And if I wanted, I could darken it a little bit more or shade it a little bit more using either darker yellows, or even adding in a little bit of green can help darken it. So if I wanted to pull, let's say I want to put a little bit of green down here at the bottom to darken it further down here, I can take just a little bit of this green right here, just a hair. And I'm going to tap it through. And then I can blend it out. And I'll follow it up with more of that deep yellow. Again, just a little bit. We'll tap it in, and then we'll brush it out. And what I like about using this type of brush is I can come in with it at different angles and create different reactions from the brush. So again, I want to just kind of darken a couple areas here. And I don't mind if it's imperfect. I kind of want it to almost have an appearance of clouds off in the distance. Again, I'm going to come back in with some white after I clean off a little bit of this paint off of here. Just kind of squeeze it out of here. There we go. Pull some of that green out as well. I'm going to come in with a little bit of that white and do something similar, just tapping in some clouds off in the distance, still using that 1-inch brush. Only this is going to be done tapping, so I'm going to actually, so I've got the paint on only one side here, so this side here does not have the paint, that side does, so I'm going to be tapping on the side that's dry to give the appearance of possibly clouds off in the distance. And I'm going to do it right above where these yellow streaks are, just very lightly. Remember, the further away the clouds are, the smaller they should look. Let me turn that. This is nice big ones. I don't know how much of these down here we're actually going to see when it's all said and done. But, you know, we'll just have them in there just in case you can see them. So I'm going to let that sit for a minute, for a hot second while I clean my brush, and we're going to start developing the background of, or the outline of Israel. So let me get this bad boy cleaned quick. I forgot I had pulled the paintbrushes out that I'd used yesterday again, and re-cleaned them, so they've been sitting here soaking in my wash bin. So I want to get them cleaned up because I will be needing them later today. So I want to make sure that they are cleaned of their present colorings. It's another reason why I had gone through and re-washed them, as some of them still had some blue on them. Which, I mean, I can always work with blue and green, that's fine. But I just want to make sure they're as clean as possible for when I do go to use them. We'll put them up here to dry. That is one thing I love about my palette container, is that it has this these little holes that I can fit my brushes in, so they can dry naturally and just kind of hang out there, which is always good. Instead of being placed in a downward position or in an awkward position where water can, like, where the brushes can be deformed from resting, they can sit straight up and down so they don't get damaged or anything, which is nice. So I'm just going to finish rinsing out this 1-inch brush. We're going to dry it off. And then we're going to start developing our skyline for Israel, or the gate that I want to put on here. Now, to do the gate, we're going to just do it like it's a shadow in the background, so I don't want anything too heavy-handed or harsh, and I don't know that I want it too large either. So we're going to set this guy out of the way. Alright, so we're going to do a skyline of Israel off in the background. Just the wall is pretty much all I want to kind of put in here. So I'm going to be using a combination of medium gray and yellow to create that skyline. So I actually had this sitting up on an angle, so it would be more visible, but it doesn't seem to be more visible, so I'm not going to do it. Alright, so to do that, I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use a flat brush. I was going to use a round, but I think I'm going to use my flat. So I'm just going to use this little guy here because I can get in, and I can make the basics, and then I can go through and put the dashes in for the tops of the wall. I don't know what they're actually called, but the way the wall is that it comes and it has these large rectangles at the top of the wall. I don't know what that's actually called. I'm not an architect, or into that type of stuff, but I want to make sure that I do develop that. If you know what it's called, feel free to comment down below or in the messaging system and let me know what it's called, because I have no clue what it's called at all. But I want to make sure I can make those as well, because that is part of the wall. So we're going to get in here. I'm going to take, so we're just taking a little bit of this medium gray, and I'm going to use my brush for this. I'm going to deposit it there, and I'm going to take a little bit of parapet. I thought that was just like the tower part. It's the rectangular parts. Here we go. So I want to make sure I can make the parapets on all this. So we're gonna get that in here.
Parapet is a protective wall that's raised up. It usually has those portions. But
Okay. So the parapet is the protective wall. So that's what we're creating. So the reason that I'm using some of this yellow in with this medium gray is to give that, still give it that hazy look. 'Cause remember, this is the sun rising for the day. And this is going to be Israel off in the background, so we want to make sure that we do have that right. I don't think I want it as a straight line. I think I want it kind of angled, so I'm going to actually turn my canvas because I'm right-handed and this is easier for me. So I want to have it coming right about here. We'll go right about here. And we're gonna make it kind of jut down a little bit because the gate itself actually is raised up. And we'll have it come back out again. And no, it's not perfect, and no, I'm not worried about it being perfect. I'm gonna fill a lot of this area in with trees and stuff, so I'm not worried about how perfect it looks. I just want to make sure that it does have that look of what it's supposed to. And we're just going to blend this down. Put a little bit more of that on my brush. I'm rethinking my use of the wet on wet technique right now, but I think once it all settles, it'll be fine. It's just really difficult right now because everything is still wet. And we're just going to tap along here and draw that downward. And the big thing is right now we're just filling this all in. And I'm using a very light-handed brush stroke. I don't want to move the paint too heavily. I just want to make sure that it doesn't have any harsh lines through it. So with that in here, let that sit for a hot second. And I'm going to come through and we're just going to tap in these little lines. I want these a little bit thicker. And if you've ever been to Israel, there's tons of like crosses and towers off in the distance. So I'm going to drop a tower in here just because I think it'd be good. Thinking either like right here or off here on the side. I think I'm going to go right here because, to be honest, that means I have to put less of it in there. So, and we'll do like a little hourglass tower. I'm tapping it in because I want it to appear like it's further away than the rest of this. And that's going to give it that appearance. I'm just going to give it a little bit more structure. There we go. We'll go back to putting our structural pieces on here. This is also giving it a chance for a lot of this to dry, which is very important. Considering how much we've got still going here. We've got a long ways to go. There we go. It's starting to look like a wall. Very slowly. Very, very slowly. It's starting to look like a wall. I'm just going through and blending out the edges of this. And I'm going very light-handed on this because all I want to do is clear out the streaking. That was created from the brush strokes that I made to place those pieces in. So just evening that out. And again, it's also allowing for it to look a little hazy off in the distance, which is kind of what I want. I don't want this to be all the same color. I want to allow some of that color that's behind the scenes to start to bleed through. And we're going to start adding some trees and stuff down in here. Now, from the hill, or from the gate down into Gethsemane, from the eastern gate down into here, would have been a downhill and then uphill. So there would have been this like coming down and then coming back up to the garden, which is where we're going to end here. So I do want to give like a haziness and like a hilliness along the way. And I think I'm going to use my dirty brush because it's already got some of that darkness on it, and some of this pale yellow. And I'm just going to like blend in what I've already got. I'm not too worried about it. Actually pull a little bit more to give some of this haziness to it. And I'm just going to kind of outline how I want this hill to look. So it'll kind of the idea is that it's going to kind of fill in. There we go. And I am allowing the paint edge to pull that gray up off of the wall that I've already built. And really allow it to blend in. And again, there's going to be a lot of trees covering a lot of this, but it's important that I take the time to create this background, because once the trees are here in the front, I won't get a chance to come back to this and create this part. So for me, it's very important that I've already got this in play. Let this drop down. We'll blend it out over here. Now, one thing I want to be able to do is come in here from this, and I want to add like just the hint of trees already coming down from the hill. Because when you think of the garden, we think of like, oh, poof, there's a garden, and it actually would have been scattered starting at the gate and coming down, leading into what I would think would be a dense olive garden. Remember, olives don't grow on vines like grapes; they grow on trees. So we want to make sure that there's that hint that there's trees already in this chaos that we've created. So I'm going to grab some of this oxide chromium green, and we're just going to put a little bit on the corner of our brush, and I'm just going to dab it in, and then I'm going to follow up with some of this paint, this pale yellow, just to continue with that hazy look. So we're going to dab in just a little bit here. I'm going to dab in a little bit more over here. This is just to give that background hint that there might be some trees back there hanging out on our way down. So we might have run into them along the way. And I'll go through and we'll add like stems and brushes and stuff to them after the fact. Maybe. I don't know. We might. Probably. Possibly. We'll see. So as we're coming forward, I think I'm going to jump straight into like the garden itself, because it gives, we already have our background in play. We already know, like we've got our scene set before us. And I do want to come through with a dry brush, and we will give that a quick wash to kind of soften it all out a little bit after it's dried a good bit. But I want to start to build down in here. I want this to be really dense with the trees. So I am going to give this a wash with the probably the oxide chromium green and a little bit of medium gray, just some kind of wash through here with some quick brush strokes, and then we're going to start to place trees and stuff. I'm not sure if I want to put like a garden gate in there. I kind of think I do. So you can't see it really well on the image that's above me, but in one of the images that I have here, there is like this solid stone gate that we pass through to get into the garden, and I would like to think that it's been there the whole time. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in there as well. We'll do that after we've layered through here. I think I'm actually going to I'm chewing on some options here on how I want to do this. Because I want to... So the idea is I've got these two trees coming up here and this pathway here that's leading back into the garden, deeper into the garden. Maybe like a wall here. So there would have to still be stuff here. And that's probably going to be like treetops and stuff. I'm looking at the image that's above me over here on my second monitor, and I think that's probably what I'm going to do, because you can see all the trees in the background on it, and you can actually see a little bit of a wall in the background. So I think I am going to put a distant wall back there. So I'm just going to put like some rough placements on here with my dirty brush, just so I can kind of see where I've got everything. This is just kind of giving an idea of a pathway that'll lead back. And we'll have a tree here, and we'll do a tree. We'll do tons of trees throughout. So this is just kind of like me doing placements. So I kind of want my wall to be about here. I'll do the wall before I do the trees, but it'll have to be after I tap in. Maybe I should do it before I tap it in. I think I'll do the wall before I tap it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be tapping in the trees, and I'm going to use my big round brush. This is a 50 round, huge. It's great for doing large amounts of trees, especially because these aren't the types of trees that I want to have be like the round fluffy trees. These are gonna be a little bit more dense. So this is great for that. I think I'm gonna put my line down here first to create my wall before I do that. So to create my wall, no, I'm gonna tap in my green first. I keep going back and forth on how I want to do this. Sorry. So I'm going to take my 50 round here. I'm going to be applying a little bit of medium gray and oxide chromium green. So we're going to do just a little bit on here on one side, and on the other side I'm doing that oxide chromium green. So this is what my brush looks like right now. And we're going to tap that in throughout. So I want to tap out some of this. I'm actually going to put it right over where this yellow is, this yellow gray, because I can use that to help mix it. And I am doing this on a dry brush, so it'll absorb a lot of my paint, unfortunately. Hey, we don't need to do that. It's rude.
What are you growling at?
Sorry, my dog's decided that she needed to growl for no apparent reason. We still don't know what she's growling at. So all I'm doing is kind of filling in where the trees are going to be, and I want them actually like way up in here.
Let's go look. What is
Sorry. I don't know what she's yelling about.
What is it? Let's go see.
She's decided that yelling is the best way to tell us that she wants to go outside and look at things. Because why not? So I kind of like how this is shaping out. And over here we're gonna have another nice big tree. And a bunch of little ones in the background. There we go. We're starting to see parts of trees coming alive. So I've got the base to my trees here. I'm gonna actually bring them up a little bit because trees aren't even. They're never even. They never look appropriate to the area that they're in. Apparently there was nothing to bark at. She just decided to bark anyway because she's silly. So we've got the base here. I'm going to just kind of take what's left and tap it in along here. And I want to give this a little bit of a haziness to it down here. So I'm going to add in some of that pale yellow in this area underneath. just a little bit. So to give the appearance of some haziness, I'm going to do a little bit of this yellow and a little bit of this yellow. So that's our, sorry, I'm having a hard time picking up just a little bit. There we go. So it's the pale yellow and medium yellow. Medium yellow is very translucent, so it really lets me have some leniency and some leeway in being able to play with it. I'm just going to move my mic a little closer because I'm hitting it with the brush. So, and I'm just tapping it through. I'm going to pick up a little bit more. And we'll tap through over here. I actually picked up a little bit more than I'd intended over there for the over here, but I think I like that anyway, so we'll just keep rolling with it. So we can just blend it out. That's not a big deal. And now, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. She's our background entertainer tonight, because that's how she rolls. This is a new brush, so what you see me picking off here is actually bristles from the brush, because it is a newer brush. So I'm going to follow in. So I've got this yellow in here. I want to fade it out a little bit more, so I'm going to come in with this pale yellow again. Just the pale yellow. I'm just going to tap it in a little bit to give like a fogginess look to it. And then I'm just kind of blending it out with the side of the brush. And we'll put a little bit more down here along the edge. I like how that's looking. I do. Alright, let me give it a little bit of an angle so I can look at it better. Sorry, I'm gonna steal it for a minute. Alright, so I'm gonna add a little bit more of that pale yellow. I'm gonna call it pale lemon yellow, and I don't know if that's right. No, it is pale lemon yellow. Alright, and I'm just gonna tap in a little bit more. And I'm not going to blend this in as much. I'm just going to tap it. I'm going to pick up a little bit more. We're going to tap it in along the edge here. Sorry about that. Hitting the microphone again. There we go. So this is the basis of the background to the garden. I am going to go through. We're going to add in tons of trees and some dirt and some all kinds of stuff. This is just kind of the basis to it. That this is our background and stuff. So we're going to go through. I'm just kind of blending this all in a little bit so it's not as harsh. I don't want it super harsh. And I am going to kind of blend it up here at the top a little. There we go. Blend that out a little. There we go. So while this down here is setting up a little bit, I'm actually going to come up here and add in and like lighten the top a little bit. It isn't super dry, but it is kind of dry. So I'm going to take a dry brush with a little bit of white on it, and we're just going to kind of tap over it to kind of give this haziness to it. So we're just going to kind of actually streak through. And I'm going to use this guy here. It's a really, really soft 1-inch oval mop. It's actually for watercolor. Oh, I haven't used it in so long. I got dust coming off of it. There we go. I think we got all the dust out of it. There we go. Yeah. So it's actually used for watercolor, but we're going to use it for this. So I'm going to set my big old hunk of brush in the water here. Hopefully it'll stay in the water. It doesn't want to stay in said water, so I'm honestly just rinsing it really quick because that's faster than trying to pick it up when it falls over. I'll grab a paper towel. I've seen some artists that use paper towels, like the whole roll, and they just wipe their brush on the whole roll. I'm like, I don't know how you do that. You'd go through so many paper towels. I would go insane going through that many paper towels just to rinse off or dry off my brush. Couldn't do it. Alright, we've almost got this brush cleaned out. It is functionally cleaned out. So now it is mopping or sopping wet. And I'm just going to leave it sit to dry. And I'll actually get in and scrub it with soap after we're done today. So we'll leave that to sit. So we're going to come in with this guy. And I'm going to put a little bit of white on here. So I'm just grabbing a little bit of this white right on the very tip. And I'm going to tap it out on the side. Because I don't want it too heavy on the white. I just want it very light. And we're just going to streak through here. I want to give the appearance of motion a little bit. So when I'm going through this, if it does pick up any of the excess colors, that's okay. I'm going to do some more up here at the top. Just kind of brushing this out, or buffing this out here. There we go. Pull this out of there. There we go. There we go. I'm just kind of buffing in some white to give the appearance of like a fogginess coming over everything. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow on this. This is just my flat. I'm just picking up a little bit of that. Yep, that lemon yellow. I want to say it's lemon yellow. Medium yellow, sorry. I'm just kind of tapping it in here. I want to give the appearance of highlights from that sunrise. And like I said, because this yellow is very translucent, it really allows for a lot of motion and a lot of play, which is always fun. And because this brush is wet, it will pick up and move paint very easily. There we go. Remember, we're still going to add more trees on top of all this down here, so this is just a base of what we've already got started, and we are going to tap in additional above and beyond this because I really want these trees to like overtake the majority of this painting. But this is just our base background, so we're gonna add on top of this here in a hot minute. So we've got our background here on, and I'm gonna add some dirt down here. I don't want to do just dirt. Some of these are a combination of colors. I'm going to use the raw sienna and the raw umber, but I'm also going to use a little bit more of our greens in with this. I want to use a nice dark sap green to really pull some of that mossiness out of the rocks in the area around it. So let me drop this guy in here. We're going to grab another flat brush. So I'm actually going to I'm going to use another round brush. This is my Bob Ross foliage brush. How fitting. So we're going to use this to tap in the browns and some of the browns and the green. So I'm going to kind of every third turn pick a different color. So we're going to start with some raw umber or raw sienna and some raw umber. And I'm going to come over here and pick up some sap green. So this is kind of what my brush looks like. So I have raw umber, raw sienna, sap green. And we're just going to kind of tap that out around the bottom here and blend it up in different areas along the bottom. I really have to blend this. This is not the easiest in placing all this brown. It's picking up the green a lot easier. It definitely picked up the green a lot easier than it picked up the browns. So this doesn't tap out as well as my round brush did, so I think I am going to switch brushes. I'm not happy with how that's working, so we're going to switch out. My round brush is still really wet, so we're going to grab another paper towel and try and dry this off. This is the only, if I had a towel that was absorbent as my paper towels, I would probably use that. Unfortunately, I don't. This is what I got. So we're just going to try and dry her off as much as we can. I don't mind a damp brush, I just don't want it soaking wet. That'll work. The damp brush means it picks up less paint. Alright, so let's load this guy up. So again, I'm just going to pick up my browns first. Because the brush is wet, it's going to smear really easily, so I don't want to pick up my greens right now. I'm just going to tap through one color, turn, tap through the other color, and blend. We're going to pick up more browns. So raw sienna, raw umber, and just start tapping. And I'm going to beat up my microphone with the handle of this paintbrush because it's how I roll apparently. If I haven't beat up the microphone, I'm not doing it right today. I'm going to intentionally pick up some more of that raw umber. I'm going to tap it in along the back. That's right about where my wall's going to go, so it's going to go just above that line. I'm going to do a little bit more of both colors right down here. I'm going to pick up just a little bit of that sap green. And I'm going to tap it around and then I'm going to blend it out. So it's starting to look a little bit more like a ground. We're starting to get ground. Alright. So it's just a little bit more of that raw umber, adding some shadowing. only because I know kind of where my trees are already going to go. I'm putting it in a little bit of it in now. If I didn't know where the trees were going to go, I probably wouldn't do it right away. I could probably hold off on it, but I have a good idea of roughly where I want them to go, so I'm just kind of tapping in a little bit. And like I know that this is going to be a pathway, so I'm tapping a little bit more of that raw sienna in here. And I'll enhance that more as we go. I'm just going to tap this out a hair more. I'm going to put a little bit more of that raw umber over here. There we go. So we've got our basics of our basis of our garden here. Now before I go in and I start blending out any of the harsh areas and stuff, I'm going to put in my wall that I do want to put in the background. So let me grab my brush. So with my brush, all I'm going to do is I'm just coming in and putting a line right above where the shadowing is. So I'm just going to put it right on the tip of the brush. This is just an 8 flat. So let me set my large round down because I'll use that here in a hot second. And I'm just going to angle this a little bit because I want to make sure that I get this as straight as possible, because once it's on, I have to go through and I have to pull down, and I'll probably use my watercolor brush for that. So we're just going to kind of tap out the appearance of a wall. And I don't need the wall to be perfect. I just need to be close. So, and I'm going to do it a little bit at a time. So that's on there, and then we're just going to brush downward. And I'm going to load up my brush again. Remember, I'm just getting it right on the edge of the brush. And I'm tapping it through. And I'm doing it in short sections so that the paint can stay super wet, so I can follow up with that light brush. And we're just streaking downward. I'm going to put a little bit extra right here on the edge where the two combine. I'm going to let that sit for a minute. We're going to go back through. So I'm going to overlap a little bit here. And we're going to streak. And we're going to overlap again. I'm just going to quickly tap this out, only because I won't have the same amount of sections. Again, just pulling downward. Then tapping over it just kind of blends it out a little bit. Just remember, it's a hazy wall, it's not a sharp wall. So we have our wall in the background. I love it. Alright, so we're going to do the exact same thing right along that shadow line, only I'm going to do this with raw umber instead. So I'm going to wipe off my brush real quick. We're going to take a little bit of that raw umber. Now, raw umber is a little bit thinner than white, so at least mine is. So I'm going to tap it on, but I don't want to move it right away. So I want to let it just kind of sit there for a minute. So I should be able to go the whole length of this lovely wall before I have to, oh, I picked up too much paint, before I have to go through and smear going in the other direction. So like with the white, I smeared upward or smeared downward. With this raw umber, I'm going to be smearing upward or with it instead of downward. But I want to make sure I get this. Remember, it doesn't have to be a perfect line because it's a garden. The fence has been through some stuff. It's seen some things. There we go. It's having a hard time getting paint on the brush. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and brush upward with it. And that's just going to lighten that. And then we kind of smear it through. And we have a wall. So now we're going to draw over this wall. So the issue is that like right now we've got all this greenery and it looks like it's behind the wall, and really it's not. All this greenery that we see here is actually in front of the wall. We just haven't put 2 and 2 together for it yet. So we're going to start adding in some trees. This is the fun part. So let me put my brushes away. And I'm going to use a script brush for this. I'm actually going to use 2 different ones to start placing the trees that are off in the background towards the back of the wall. I'm using a 10 and a 1 script brush. And this is going to allow for a lot of leniency with the paint. And we're going to use, I'm just going to set this right here in the front. So this is, remember this is our sand, our raw sienna, and our raw umber. I'm going to use a lot of the raw sienna to place everything. And then I'm going to come, actually no, I take that back. I lied. I'm wrong. I'm going to use the raw umber, and then we're going to follow back through with the raw sienna to lighten it, and then the sand to really pull some of those lights out. We'll actually be mixing the sienna in with some of our yellows to really build off of what we've already started. And we are going to still go through and tap out more to the forefront trees once we've gotten our background trees done. So I'm going to start with my 10 script brush. And we're adding in trees that are already in the back. So, like we'll put a guy here. So my script brush is just to get the basis of the tree on here. I'll go back through and fill it in afterwards, but I want to make sure I get my shadowing right before I walk away from it. I think I'm going to leave it like that. I like that. Yep. I'm going to put a little guy back here in the corner. I kind of want to put, looking at spacing on the image above me to kind of get an idea of where I want to put these next trees. I think I'm going to put one little guy way off here in the corner. Now to build off of these so that way they look closer, we're actually going to tap in some of our darker grains. So I'm going to use my fan brush right now to come in here with some of this sap green. Yeah, it's sap green. It's just some of the sap green, and I'm just tapping it in underneath here. It's just to give an appearance of some of that green being attached to it. These trees are going to be hidden by more trees, so I'm not super worried about them looking perfect yet. I can always come back through and enhance them if I wanted to. The big thing is making sure that I definitely buff out these lines, because I don't want them to look like harsh shadows. So I have to make sure I do take the time to buff those out. There we go. Alright, so I got the little bit of background trees in here. We're going to work a little bit more on our foreground trees, because I think those are going to be the ones that are going to pop through the most, and they're going to take up the majority of all this here. I do want to have multiple large trees involved in this. So I want to put one big one right here. How do I want to lean you? Wondering, I think I might wait on putting the trunks in for these big trees first, and actually just go through and put the greenery in. The reason I'm thinking that is because there's a lot of lines I want to make. I'm looking at these trees in the image above me, and there's a lot of, like, they're not super dense leaves. They're very light, very airy, so that means there's going to be a lot of twigs, and I don't want to brush through and lose any of that. So instead of going straight into that, I'm going to go through, we're going to enhance and pull out some of these greens, and start really building our foreground trees. So I'm going to move this out of the way. I'll come back to that in a minute. So we're going to go to our greens. So I'm going to pull my sap green first, since that's already what's on my small brush here. And I want to pull put this nice and dense here. I want to make sure it comes up a little bit, because this is one of the big foreground trees. And I'm okay if it doesn't come through, like if some of this yellow pops through up here, I'm okay with that, because it is kind of going to add to some of the highlights naturally, and that's okay. I'm not super obsessive over it. I'm just making sure I go through and I buff this all out. And I can always come in with my watercolor brush and buff. You can see the color buffing out there, which allows me to come back in. I'm going to create a smaller one out of this little lump here. So this is going to come up in here and up and over. gonna play with this one a little bit more here. Just gonna get some strong contrast around over here. And we're gonna play with those when we add in our branches and stuff. So I want to make sure that they're there for me to connect to. There we go. Put some more sap green. Like I said, I don't mind if the yellow is shining through on some of this up here, only because it does allow for some of the natural highlighting. So I don't have to actually create highlights, it's doing it on its own, which is nice. And all of this I'm just doing with the sap green right now. I'm gonna actually take this away. Now, what I want to do, I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to add in a little bit of extra throughout. Just placing some extra of that sap green, because I'm going to go through and I'm going to buff this in with that watercolor brush that I have. And I'm actually going to buff it in with a little bit of the yellow to kind of give, again, it's supposed to be hazy, so I'm going to take some of this yellow here that's nice, this medium yellow. It's a great blender, and we're just going to tap it through over what we've just placed. And it's going to help us kind of add some of that haziness in amongst our trees. Gonna do it with the watercolor brush. This brush is already dirty. We're just gonna keep using it. No sense in dirtying one more brush to add some haziness to some trees. I'm just going to pull some of this down through here. Yellow haziness. Now, all I'm doing is adding just a little bit of this yellow haziness down here as well. Just giving that hint of sunrise. And I'm doing it along the wall because I want to make it look like there's maybe like some moss growing on the wall. So the wall's not perfect. It's a little muddled with some like moss or something. There we go. I'm going to go through and we're just going to keep kind of muddling up the ground a little bit. Now I'm going to go through with my watercolor brush real quick, and I'm just going to kind of tap out, brush down, tap this out a little bit. And that's going to let it kind of blend in a little, because that's very important for this. I don't want these harsh brush strokes on here. I want this to blend out very nicely. There we go. Much better. So we've got our tree line in. We can actually go through and start adding in our trees. Let me pick up my brush that fell. I do want to go through and I'm going to haze this out up here at the top a little bit. I feel like that is still sitting a little too strong towards the forward. But we'll come back to that. I'll probably go through it with some pale yellow or something. Really hit some starker lines up here. Outlines or something. I don't know. I'll figure out a way to blend this out. Maybe darken a darker yellow behind it. Something. I don't know. So right now, I need to go in and we need to put our trees in place. So we're gonna start. We're gonna use our raw umber to start to place the dark part of the tree. And I'm actually let me see if I have a lot of pre-mixed colors. I think raw umber is probably the closest I'm going to get to what I'm looking for. So I'm going to start with raw umber, but I am going to be adding in some Payne's Gray as I'm going through it to darken the shadows on the brush or on the trees, so that way it looks a little bit more of a natural coloration. So I've got, and you have to like looking at the trees. So you, I'm going to enlarge this real quick so you can see what I'm looking at. The tree on the right, if you look at it, it's got a lot of like divots and growth into it. So the branches and the trunk of a olive tree are not just existent or just there. They are like they're not just a straight line. They're not just a straight trunk. There's a lot of divots and crevices and stuff. So I want to make sure that I can go through and I can highlight out those crevices as well. So we're going to start off with our raw umber, and I'll be blending in Payne's Gray as I go, which I do have right over here on the side as well on this palette. So I'll be dipping back and forth between the two palettes, raw umber and Payne's Gray, as I'm creating the base to the tree trunks and the branches and everything, and then we're going to follow up through with some of the lighter stuff. So I want to start with these back trees first, and really start to build off of them, and we'll bring their branches up and around, and we'll start playing with them a little bit more. So we're going to drop these guys in. So by doing these guys first, it actually lets me leave a lot of that lighter color in this. And I'm actually going to add just a little bit of yellow into these. These aren't the super dark ones yet. We're not there yet. We're getting there. We're not there yet. So I'm just tapping in some of this yellow and alongside this brown, just to really highlight these trees and their trunks. We can even tap up into here. Now, because of how the branches roll, they come out really intense. Here we are. So they actually come out and there's tons of little branches that come off of these. So I want to make sure that I do take the time to put them in there. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this yellow. I'm going to start off by putting just a couple of these little branches in here and following it with the raw umber. Remember, I'm not putting too much detail on these because they are in the background, but I do want to put some trunks back here. There we go. So this is these are the background branches. So these aren't the foreground. And I'll go through and I'll add some highlights over these as well. We're going to get this guy over here on the left. So I'm coming in with this raw umber. It's just off in the background. And again, I'll go through and I'll add highlights and stuff to those when we get to them, because now we need to go through and we need to add in our large tree trunks. So we've got a couple of them that we're going to put in here. I'm going to start with one right about here, I think. So I want to create this pathway back, not too deep. I want to start with a branch or tree right here. So this is where I'm going to tap into that paint spray that I've got over here on the side. So I really want this brown to darken out. So I'm going through and I'm doing this really dark now, and I'll actually go through and add highlights later. So I really want to allow this to show its nice deep heavy root system. I'll do another one. I'm going to do a nice big one right here in the front. And they're never shaped properly. They're all shaped weird. I'll do a little one right here. And then I want to come through. I'm going to darken this guy a lot. I know these look really dark right now. Just be patient with me. I promise they'll lighten up as we go through the process. And I want to do a nice big one right here, leading up here. So I like that. So let's darken this guy up. I want to put another one right here, but I need to do this first. So we're going to darken this. I'm stealing the painting for a second so I can get in here and do this correctly. Because my lighting has everything all catawonkus. I just need to go in here and hit some of these shadows. And I like to try and get like right on top of my paintings when I'm doing them, so I get like all up in the space on there. So I wanted to make sure I could get in there and hit these properly. And really allow for that shadowing to be where it's supposed to. There we go. Now I want to do another one right here, but I want this one to be a little bit on the lighter side, so we're going to do a little bit of the raw umber. And I want it to be like a really big one. Kind of like the one that's on the left there. So it's just very, it almost looks like two of them that are growing together. So I'm actually just going to tap this guy out a little bit. I'm just tapping out some of these roots. Because trees are never just a straight line down to the ground. There's always jagged, blended root systems. I'm just going to tap that out a little bit. There we go. So now what I want to do, I want to go through and I'm going to darken up some of these branches that are coming up, and then we're going to go through and we're going to add some highlights to some of these trees. So I'm using straight Payne's Gray on a small brush, and I'm going to start close to the branch, and then I want to kind of draw them off into small branches here. And I don't normally get too in detail on these, but I kind of want to. Kind of feeling it. There we go. We're starting to get some branches going here. So now that we've got our trees in play, I've got to go through and add the highlights in, which is, for me, it's going to be a little difficult because I want to make sure I catch those pock marks that are in the tree. I think that's what's going to make them stand out as their signature. That's like their signature to it. So I want to go through just these little guys here that are really light in the background. I'm just going to darken them in a little bit. It's going to make shadowing them a little bit easier when I come over to them. And I'll do the background ones last because they'll be the lightest. But I'm just adding a little bit of Payne's Gray to that brown to darken them a little bit so I can highlight them a little bit easier when I come to them. So I'm going to start off with with my pale lemon yellow. Sorry, I'm a little on the quieter side. My mouth's starting to hurt a little. So I'm trying to take it as easy as possible because I'd like to try and finish this today. And we're still going to try and add some type of foliage down here. I don't know, but probably just some brush or some greenery. We'll see. And I want to darken up around this pathway a little bit. So we're going to start off. I'm going to take this pale lemon yellow here, and I'm going to add probably a little bit of this sap green, and we're going to combine the two of them together to create the highlights for the trees. So it's just a little bit of this sap green and this pale lemon yellow. I'm going to add a little bit more of that yellow. I'm going to add a little bit of this golden yellow to it because I want it to be a little bit more yellow than what it is. There we go. Now to create this, I'm almost going to give the appearance of like vines growing on them lightly. So it's just lots of and I want to vary the pressure that I'm putting on the brush from heavy and light and everywhere in between. Because that's important. That's given a lot of that implication of what's there. I think I like that. We do the same with the other side over here. So again, I'm just trying to create that depth that's in the that's on the trees themselves. And I will go through. So now that it's on there, I can go over it with. I want to use my watercolor brush, which actually is absolutely dirty right now. So we're gonna try and clean that off real quick. It's not too bad. All right, so just to go, my watercolor brush is covered in green. I'm just gonna deal with it. I'm just gonna tap that out a little. And that just kind of lets it blend in. And actually having that green on here is actually helping kind of blend that yellow in. So there we go. Look at that. Looks a little bit more natural. So we're going to do the same with these other ones back towards the back. So I actually have to create more. So again, we're just using some of that sap green. A little extra this time. Pale lemon yellow. Get a good bit in there. And I'm going to grab a good bit of this yellow this time because these are going to be further back. We're just going to start mixing. There we go. We're going to do the same thing with these guys back here. Only it's going to be a little bit more overall, I guess would be the term I want to use. Over here on this one here, I want to kind of pull only because he's in the background of the other tree. So I want to pull it right up to the edge of that other tree to give that look of and that appearance of it being behind the other one. just kind of playing with this back tree here because I'm not liking how it's turning out. So I'm just kind of pulling the paint around all over the place to recreate what I'm looking for here. There we go. I think I like that much better. I do. I think I really like that. Alright, so we've got this kind of in play. I'm going to highlight a couple of spots on these little guys here. Just a couple little spots here. And I'm still just using that pale lemon yellow as my highlight. I'm not using anything too strong. I still want to have that hazy look to everything. We are going to go through and brush over it a little bit with some white or some pale lemon yellow after everything's settled in. I want to give the appearance of still that sunlight that's bursting through, so we're going to go through and highlight up around here as well. So let me switch over to my large fan brush quick, because we'll do the trees quick. What I'm going to do is take that pale lemon yellow and some of this golden yellow here, and we're going to really come up in here and really push some of that sunlight through and add some nice brightness to the image. So I'm going to start with this, I want to say it's golden yellow, deep yellow, and I'm just going to kind of start pushing up here around the edges. And like here, I can see it's pushing too far, so I can pull some of that sap green out and follow back over it. Again, I just want it on the edges. We're going to come up here and we're going to tap in. And I'm tapping at the edge and I'm tapping downward. we're starting to see that yellow start to peek through. And I'm just going to come in now with some pale lemon yellow. And I'm not cleaning my brush in between. I don't mind that it's dirty. And we're just tapping this in. I'm just tapping it out at the tops. I'm tapping in a little bit of darker shades in here. Just a little bit. There we go. So I want to go through, I do want to kind of pull some extra, like make this a little bit more yellow than what it is. I think it's a little too white for what it is. I really want to pull the idea that there's some nice dark yellows in there. So I'm going to grab a round, and I'm pulling this deep yellow here. And we're just putting it over this. And I'm placing it now, but I'm going to go through and I am going to streak it with a dry brush and kind of tap it out, so it'll actually look pretty awesome when it's done. So I'm going to come in here with a dry brush, I just need a flat, just a simple flat brush, and we're going to set that up here. Just kind of blend this out. You can see I unintentionally pulled some of the green up here, so we're just gonna take some of this pale, blend that out. And I'm going to clean off my dirty brush, just wiping off the excess paint that's on there. And I'm going to tap on some more of that deep yellow up into here. And I'm tapping around the white that's already here. And then I can, after I've tapped it in around the majority of the skyline, I'll go through and tap it in around the tree line too. I'm just kind of blending in. There we go. A little bit of that pale yellow. Kind of blend in up at the top here. There we go. I think that's, well, you can't really see it very well, but I think that's a better, hold on. I don't know if I can, let me turn the light off. You can kind of see it a little bit better with the light off, but in my opinion, it blends out easier. I'm going to come through with some of the Payne's Gray and darken up a little bit of this, not too much. And I'm just doing it again on that dirty flat brush that I have. And it's just tapping it out. So it's keeping a lot of that yellow in amongst the image. There we go. And I'm going to tap in just a little bit of yellow. There we go. Now we're going to kind of give this a little bit more of a majestic look. I want to put in a little bit of a pathway. So I'm just going to take this raw umber, and I'm going to start here. I'm going to just kind of push, and then push. Let that kind of pan out over this way a little bit too. just trying to give the look of a little bit of a pathway here. There we go. Now, in the midst of all this, so we've got like this. We've got a good bit going on here. I do want to add some like mystical tones to it, so we're gonna add just a little bit of like misting. So to do that, I'm gonna use my little brush here, my thin one. I'm gonna dampen it, and then I'm gonna dip it in white. And we're gonna smear that around a little bit, and I'm intentionally using white because I want those nice light. Well, maybe I could use yellow. I could probably use like yellow tones. So I think I'll use the pale yellow. So I'm going to use a combination. I'm going to turn my light back on so you can see what I'm doing here. There we go. So I'm going to use a combination of the pale lemon yellow and medium yellow, because medium yellow is very transparent, and the combination of the two should lend to a very light yellow that's not so transparent. It's still like a little opaque, but not super opaque. And the idea is I'm just going to put some little whimsical lines through to give like this hint of like sun catching on like mist and stuff like that. So we're just gonna just like little So we're just adding like this little whimsical feel to it. I do want to kind of tap out a little bit of mist towards the back here where the fence line is, because I feel like that's important. So just along where this is, I am going to pull some of this pale color that I've created, and we're just going to plop it. And I'm actually going to tap this out with my brush. And I do want it to overlap some of these, so these farther back trees are going to get some of this mist on them. And I'm going to come in here with that watercolor brush here in a hot second. We're just going to blend this all out. It's going to look amazing. So come in here with this guy and just start tapping. There we go. So I'm going to create a little bit more mist back there. And I'm just blending more of that pale lemon yellow and medium yellow together. I'm just going to I'm going to take another dry brush here, just another flat brush that I have, and I want to kind of buff out some of this mist. Some of these are a little bit bigger than I'd like them to be, so we're just going to buff them out a little bit. So we've got a lot of mist spots in here, a lot of whimsical motion and movement, and I want to kind of tone it down a little bit. I think I went a little overboard. And it's okay as long as I recognize it, so we're just going to blend out some of this stuff. The fun part is I can actually come in with a little bit of white on my brush and tap in some of that mist. Didn't want it in there. So like here, this one got a little too dark, so I can just come in here with my finger and just kind of pull some of that white off. And this is just some excess white on my brush that I'm pulling around. And I'm going to do the same thing with that pale lemon yellow, because this is that misting. So I'm pulling that pale lemon yellow on here, and some of the combo that I've created. And I'm just going to tap just a couple spots here along that mist line, and we're going to come up here into the trees. Just tap a couple places. And we'll blend that in. There we go. Now there are like some bushes and stuff. If you look at the painting or the picture, there's some bushes and shrubbery and stuff in there. I don't know if I'm actually going to go through, my camera stopped focusing. There it goes. Oh, it's having a hard time focusing on the painting. Yeah, it's having a hard time focusing. Sorry. So I think I'm gonna go through, I just want to darken up this parapet a little bit in the background, and then I think we're gonna call it. I don't think I want to do too much more than that. So I'm gonna just go with the Payne's Gray and do some light outlining to pull some of the shadowing out of this. And I know I'm going way on the inside on the edge of this, and that's okay. So I'm going to blend it out. Try to see what brushes I have left that are dry. Oh yeah, this little filbert will work. Perfect. And so the idea is that it's just pulling some of these edges in and outlines. There we go. I think we are done. I'm gonna call it right there. This is my rendition of the Garden of Gethsemane, inspired by the photo that's up above me. We've been at this for a while, and I actually need a nap now. I'm exhausted. But this is it. I'll have a photo of it taken once I actually go through and peel actually, we'll do that real quick. I can peel the tape off real quick, so you guys can see why I did this. It's so that the paint doesn't hit all the way to the edge, because I am an edge painter, in case you haven't noticed. I like to paint edge to edge. So by taping off the canvas, it means that where the frame will sit will not be impacted by the paint. So that means that paint won't peel or anything like that because of it. Because the frames that I used for my canvas panels are just regular painting frames, and then I just take the glass and toss it. So I'm actually going to toss both of these palettes because these paints are all mixed and chunky now. So let's go through. We're just pulling the tape off the back here. Now if I was smart, I would have pre-tacked or pre-taped this. So that means that I would have taken the tape and like pressed it against my clothing and then put it on here so it wasn't super duper sticky. This is super duper sticky tape. So we're gonna try and peel this off. It's already trying to peel off the paper on the back. So much for being painter's tape. Apparently I should have used a different type of tape or pre-tacked it. So we'll just peel a little bit gently on the back side. And now I know, don't tape up the back side of a canvas panel. Mental note received. Alright, 2 sides down, 2 to go. You got this. I'm ripping my tape because you can't hear it. We're trying to untape this painting here. sides down. One side to go. We got this. There we go. There we are. Perfectly edged. So that means that like when this goes into the frame, the paint on the won't be on the edges here, so it won't be damaged by the frame itself. So that's the whole point of taping off the edges like that. It's something I'm probably going to start doing more going towards the future, just because I plan on framing more of my work. So there you go. We have the Garden of Gethsemane. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being with me. As always, have a fantastic day. Stay creative, and we will see you guys next time.
Oh, you are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Standing here in your presence, in a grace so relentless, I am one. Oh, by perfect love, wrapped within the arms of heaven, in a peace that lasts forever, sinking deep in mercy. See, I'm wide awake, drawing closer by grace, and all my heart is yours. All fear removed, I breathe you in, I lean into your love. Oh, your love. When I'm lost, you pursue me. Lift my head to see your glory, Lord of all. So beautiful. Here in you, I find shelter, captivated by the splendor of your face. Oh, my secret place, I'm wide awake, drawing closer by grace, and all my heart is yours. All fear removed, I breathe you in, I lean into your love. Oh, your love. Your love so deep is washing over drawing closer by grace, and all my heart is yours. All fear removed, I breathe you in, I lean into your love. Oh, your love. When you stand, I feel the floor of heaven tremble. As you breathe, we live and have our being. Oh. When you